Hey, welcome everyone. Today is our webinar on the data privacy protection and security. Uh, I will share my screen so we can go through the slides. Can everyone see the slides okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm Jabbar Husseini. I'm the data manager and training coordinator at the CS-DCC. And with me today are some terrific guest speakers. We have Lucia Costanzo from the U of G Library, where she works as the Associate Librarian of Research and Scholarships. We have Claude Robert, who's a professor and Faculty of Agriculture and Food Sciences and the principal investigator for the CS-DCC out of the University of Laval. Also joining us from the University of Laval is Andre Garrigas, who's the Information Resource Analyst at the Office of Digital Services and Research. Just a bit of background about the work we do at the CS-DCC and some of the key frameworks. I'll just quickly go through these. So we try to follow these frameworks, beginning with the FAIR principles for data. So that means it's findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. We also adhere to the OCAP principles for Indigenous data governance, which entails ownership, control, access, and possession. As well as the CARE principles for Indigenous data governance and responsible research and innovation principles, which are more found in Europe and US. Some brief definitions. So data privacy is the principle that individuals and groups have control over how information is collected, used, stored, and shared. Data protection is the practice of safeguarding sensitive information from data loss and corruption. And data security is the process of maintaining the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of an organization's data in a manner consistent with the organization's risk strategy. With that said, I'll hand it off to our first guest speaker, Lucia.
Jabber. So data privacy is about giving people control over their personal information. And in Canada, this means following laws like PIPEDA and other provincial privacy acts. And these laws require organizations, including yours, on how to handle data responsibly. And data privacy includes being clear on how the information is collected, stored, used, and shared. And it is especially important in research and also in health and government projects where sensitive information is involved. So protecting privacy helps build trust between individuals and the organizations that manage the data. Next slide, please. Sorry. So you want to think about a data management plan, and these are also known as a DMP, and it is a roadmap for protecting and managing data. And it explains how data will be handled from the moment it's collected until the end of the project and even after the end of the project. It provides researchers an opportunity to think ahead and to document how sensitive and personal data will be collected for the project and how it will be safeguarded. So DMPs, they really help ensure that data is responsibly used responsibly and while meeting ethical, legal, and institutional privacy requirements. Next slide, please. The project lead, often the principal investigator, is responsible for the data management plan. And when creating a privacy-focused DMP, it usually involves others on the team. So it would include the research team members, the data managers, and possibly staff from the research ethics or research security office to provide guidance. Everyone who handles the data has a role, but the project owner is accountable for making sure privacy protections are clearly defined and followed by everyone on the research team. Next slide, please. A DMP is ideally created before a project begins and before any data containing personal or sensitive information is collected. But you can create one at any point in the research project, but your biggest bang for your buck would be at the beginning of the project. It is often written during the grant proposal stage, so privacy risks can be easily identified early. And again, a DMP is a living document and it should be reviewed and updated if data collections methods change or if a new privacy concern arises during the project. Next slide, please. Creating a DMP starts with identifying what data will be collected and whether it includes personal or sensitive information. Next, decisions are made about data and how it will be securely stored. How will it be accessed, and will this access be controlled? And backup procedures during the active phase of research. And the plan will also describe how the data will be identified, documented, and shared at the end of the research project. And all these decisions are then written into a structured plan, and you can use an online tool called the DMP Assistant. So next slide, please. The DMP Assistant is a free and bilingual tool, and it helps researchers create a DMP step by step. It guides you through these important questions about your data, and again, and how you will handle the sensitive and personal information. And the platform, which is an online platform, allows you to, give you templates and examples so that you can also meet your funders or institutional or legal requirements for your research project. You can collaborate with people on your team and you can share it out to people on your research project. You can export it for grant applications or project documentation. So this tool makes writing a compliant, private, conscious data management plan much easier, especially for Canadian research projects. Next slide. Data management plans and data privacy, they both go hand in hand. DMPs help researchers plan how to handle this data responsibly, including protecting, again, the personal and sensitive information, and then start out by identifying what data will be collected, whether it includes private or confidential information. They also define who can access the data and how it will be stored securely. DMPs make sure that data handling complies with laws like PIPEDA and institutional policies, and DMPs guide safe data sharing and often use techniques like anonymization, de-identification to protect individual privacy. And essentially, a DMP turns privacy principles into practical steps for the project. Next slide. Setting yourself up for success with a data management plan starts with understanding the rules. You'll need to make sure you know what your funder, institution, and Canadian privacy laws require. The next step is to plan early and to create your DMP before you start collecting your data so that you can address these privacy and management issues from the beginning. You want to identify any sensitive or personal data you'll be handling and think about how to protect it. You want to set up secure systems for storage, backups, and access so that only authorized people can see the data. And finally, you want to document everything and keep clear records of your decisions, processes that you make during your project so that your project is much more organized, compliant, and easier to manage. Now I'll pass it off to Claude. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Claude. Oh, Claude, you might be muted.
Okay, so you didn't hear me. I said thank you, Jabber and Lucia. So you can switch the slide, please.
No problem.
Well, thank you. So basically, Lucia was mentioning that there are some sense of sensitivity to some of the data, but this may sound a bit contradictory to the general phrase up there, which is saying that data generated through public funding should be made publicly available. So we hear that all the time, and I think one of the word that is key in there is should. So basically, should is not must or has to. So basically, people, it provides some flexibility on what could be made public or not. So what is sensitive and what is not? So basically, that is a not so easy question. But basically, we want to provide, the most. We want to make the most to be the promote transparency, and we all know that sharing data is a way to be more efficient and everything. We know that it's needed, but it's not always possible to do so. When we talk about clinical human data, it's kind of evident. Everything that can trace back to the identification of a person is protected by law. Lucia talked about this, but what about other type of sensitive data? Next slide. So, often when we talked about agriculture and environmental data, people think that it's easy. It's not really sensitive or anything else, but there are tons of reasons why this data is sensitive. Here are a few examples. If we're talking about the sanitary reasons, if we're talking about disease resistance and some of the epidemiological data about where pathogens are in the province. It's probably not data you want to share. For instance, another instance, a GPS coordinate of tag animals. I remember doing a project on caribou, and the project is there for management and protection. But if we put a tracker on each animals and we show where they are in the province, well, and this data is public to any hunter, it's gonna help the hunter find the animals. So basically, we have to be careful of what we can share. And that's why a lot of the data produced in any field and specifically for agriculture and environment can have some economic, ecological, and biosecurity implication. So that's why a lot of the data can fall under the category of being sensitive. Next slide. So how can we reconcile what I thought about making it public and also the FAIR principles? So basically, a modern way to see data exposure or data sharing is using the principle of being as open as possible and as close as necessary. So we will share the data that is not sensitive, but the data that is more sensitive that we may want to have a control over the access. Does that contravene or is it counterintuitive or doesn't follow the FAIR principle? Actually not, because if you look at the FAIR principles, you need to have it findable. So the existence of the data needs to be known, but the data itself might be under control of access. So that's why the accessibility will fit even if you have a control of the access. But at least if the existence of the data is known, then you're gonna be okay with the FAIR principles. So that's why it's really important, and to I would say, because the data is sensitive, it doesn't mean that it can't be shared. People may want to have a better control over it, and that is fine. So if you look in the blue portion, you're going to see that some of the sensitive data can become confidential and potentially harmful if misused. And this, if you do a survey amongst a researcher, the first thing, and you ask them, are you sharing or making the data public? Everybody's going to say yes, because that's virtue. Then if you start scratching the surface and asking more questions, next slide, please. You may end up with a different story. And that story here was generated at Queen's University, and basically you can see if you read through it, that's it. A lot of the, I would say, the reluctance in sharing is associated with trust issues. People wants to know what the other people are gonna do with their data. Of course, there's a strong, I would say, sense of ownership on the part of the academic research teams on the data, because they spent a lot of resources and energy to produce that data, and they want to make sure that the data is used properly, and also that they have used the data to the extent that they want to use it. They don't want to be scooped, so that's important. So, and also sharing, a lot of the research teams see that as very complicated. So there's a lot of red tape and bureaucracy associated with licensing and sharing agreements. Next slide, please. Amongst the CS-DCC, we did an internal survey with the ICTs, and basically we got exactly the same answers. So a lot of people were afraid of sharing, or at least not. Everybody's sharing the data at some point, but sometimes it's later, because they want to make sure that the data has been used, to the full extent. So that's why I think that we can, I would say, increase sharing by promoting strategies to help the researcher to build trust in the way they share their data. Next slide. If you look here at some of the things that struck in following the survey, as I said, is the researcher has a strong sense of ownership over the data. So the first 3 or 4 points are restating what I said. And basically another point is, okay, so if I share my data and I put it in a repository, is it going to be costly? How much is it going to cost me every year? And what happens once my grant is over and I don't have any money to support this? So these are concerns that are very important to address. And after that, you can see at the bottom, if anyone around the table has ever submitted a paper for publication, it's always something that is pretty tedious. It's hard, and sometimes, and nowadays, the journals are expecting for you to pay for your work. So basically, it's funny to see that if we're talking about, would you invest some money and time into structuring your own data and making it, using a vocabulary that is ontogenetically well recognized? People are not so keen right now to be willing to spend the resources for it, but we see that at some point this would be a very valuable effort. So there's some mindset progression in the mindset that needs to occur for our academic perspective on data sharing. Next slide, please. At the institutional level, sometimes the value, the asset associated with having the data set that could be used by others, that could be leveraged for other grants, that could be leveraged for new collaboration, may not be fully perceived. We know that the generating data is a societal contribution, which is super important. But you would go and ask the question to Genome Canada or Genome Quebec or any academic institution, how many data sets have you produced over the past 20 years? Nobody's going to be able to answer that. And basically the question about who owns the data and who decides to share it, that's a very important question that is still very hard to answer. So is it a joint ownership between the academic team and the institution? Is it purely the academic team? So these are questions that at some point we will need to address. But of course, right there, what you can see is that normally the academic institution can serve as steward of the data. So that's because knowledge and libraries fit together into the academic institution, and basically having data sets that are available, it's pretty much, as I always say, the library of the future. So that's why I think at some point, the institutions will be invested in managing these assets. Next slides. So, Lucia talked to you about different roles and different peoples invested in generating the data. So here's the same. I mean, who owns the data? Who makes the call on sharing the data? Is it the sample collector? Is it the resource owner? Meaning, if you're having samples from the land, or if you have the samples from a soil microbiome, let's say, is it the landowner? Is it the animal owner from which you took the biopsy, for which you're going to do the microbiome or the genomics evaluation? Is it the data producers, so the entities that is analyzing, processing the samples? Is it the data analyst who's going to make sense of the data and get the nice information about it? Is it the funding agencies or the industrial partners? Is it the host institution? So is it your institutions that are making these calls? So what I'm trying to do here is trying to expose or present or brush a portrait, just to explain that it's not as simple as we may thought, as who is the owner of the data. Next slide. So there are some definitions that are well accepted. So the data creator is the one who generates the transformed data. Data owners, which is still the terms owner is still not clear. It's the legal entities with ultimate authority and liability over the data. And the data stewards is the one that has been mandated to manage and I would say deal with the access requests. Next slide. So that's why I'm saying that we're saying that the data ownership can be problematic. So who owns the data? Basically, when you look at it, it's rarely a single or a clear legal answer, because as you saw, there's many people who are invested in generating the data and analyzing the data. And something that is interesting is that the data is rivalrous. I don't know how to say that in English. So base, how do you say that?
Rivalrous.
Rivalrous. So the right way to say it. So what this means is, think about a sample. So if you send a sample to our collaborator, at some point he's going to use a piece of the sample to analyze it, if not the entire sample. So basically, at some point you're going to lose the sample because it's been analyzed. But in case of data, that's not the case. I mean, you can copy it, you can transform the data, you can aggregate it with other data set and send it elsewhere ad libitum. So that means that the data can be free floating anywhere, depending. So that's why that's a different concern that we had when we were sharing samples. So in most Canadian contexts, data is not owned in the traditional way we think, as we would do with a sample, because of in part what Lucia was mentioning. So there are some privacy laws, intellectual property laws, contract laws, and institutional policies. By discussing with our group, I saw that the institutional at Laval has a different mindset than other institutional, and other institutional has a different ways of considering data sharing. So I think at some point, that's going to be very interesting to compare how we see the world on this side. So the key principle is that, in fact, data governance is focused on rights, responsibilities, and control, and not necessarily ownership. It's actually the access, the privilege of having access to it that is controlled, not the ownership of the data itself. Even we were talking, and basically, someone told me that the data itself is not the creation; it's the database that is the creation. So, so the database has some creativity to it, so you can protect the database, but not necessarily the data in it. So that's some subtlety about it. Next slide. So that's why within the CS-DCC, we've been thinking about it for a long time and being sitting down and how can we address all these cases, and basically here are some of our vision on it. So if we start from day one with a decision where the data can be shared and it's not really, there's no really constraint to it, or maybe there are some constraint, but general constraint. I don't want you to use my data for commercial use. I don't want you to do some, but there are already some licenses for that, and that's why we think that we can use. Can you click on it, Jabber? We could probably use what's sort of the framework of the Creative Commons to cover these ones. However, at some point, we were talking about data sensitivity and control of the access, and I can provide you another example that from a discussion with an academic team I had last week. We were talking about soil microbiome surrounding mining sites. And I was talking about is that freely available to the public? And basically, the academic team said yes, we put that in the public domain, no problem. So I was kind of curious because to me, that could have some sensitivity to it. So then I started scratching and then asking, so what type of metadata are you providing with the genomics? Are you providing a GPS coordinate of the mining site? Of course not, because basically that would be unethical. So basically, if you're providing some information but not necessarily all the complementary information, you may semi-sterilize some of the application you can do with it, right? So what if you could make public part of a data set using the Creative Commons, but some of the sensitive feature to it, you could probably control access through a second type of licensing. So click on it, Jabber, please. So that's why we're thinking and we're developing. It's partly that's a tool that is led by Carly in Guelph, and basically that's the data request tracker. So when we talk about sharing anything, the first thing that comes to mind is who are you? What are you what do you need? What do you plan on doing with the data, and for what? And all these questions. So basically, what we're thinking is that we could provide some tools for asking these questions, upfront, and making a better decisions on capacity to share it, at least with some of the information already collected before the negotiation. Some of the data could be fully, I would say, sensitive, and you don't want to share it. But at least what we believe is that the existence of the data should be known, so we could at least index in the catalog the existence of the data, and at least a contact person. So if that contact person does make a good case and convince the person that did not want to share, that at some point change its mind and wants to share, well, the data request tracker could come in handy to help build the licenses for sharing agreements. Next slide, please. So basically, if these are ballpark numbers that came that I just put there, so it's not from a survey or anything, but I would expect that about 50% of the academic data could probably fall under the Creative Commons and easily available. But I would think that the other half would probably be accessible through a some sort of license agreement. But if you look at private data or governmental data, that could be very sensitive at some point. And basically, I would think that if I take the private sector as the example, they don't want to put their data unless they're forced to. So I would think very little data would be publicly available just like that. I would think that 50% could be available if you make a good case through probably questions that could be answered with the data request tracker. And maybe 49% would at first not be accessible at all. But I think, because you want to have a contact info and at least the visibility to know that the data exists, there's a chance that you may convince that person to share it with you. Next slide. So, this would be an example where, these are the simple questions. It's all logical questions. So, who's requesting? What do you need? Why do you want it? What are you going to do with the data? Who's going to have access? Do you want to reshare it to somebody else? Where are you going to store it? Next slide, please. Who owns the ownership even after the data is analyzed? Do you want to have some acknowledgements about the data? What is going to be the disposition after that sharing agreement? Because sharing agreement means that there's a date to start and there's a date to end. So after that, what are you going to be doing with the data? So these are principles that are logical, and I think that would by producing such licenses, then you help the sharing the sharing of the sensitive data. Next slide. So what comes back very, very often these days is that data ownership and data sovereignty. Just because people are thinking that with the AI and machine aggregation of the data, you may easily lose control of your own data. It may be also be packed and misinterpreted if it's not used properly. So people are getting scared about this, and that's why I can foresee that some walls are being, built around some of the data because there is some sensitivity to it. So amongst the core principle of the CS-DCC is that we want to respect the data ownership and sovereignty. So that's why people who comes in with the people we work with, well, we respect your data, we respect your privacy of your data, and we go with the core principle that all the data should be as accessible as possible, but as close as necessary. So, and in the same sense, we also push and be a good advocate for the fair and responsible openness. So that's why, we're providing the tools I just showed to help you take these decisions. Next slide, please.
That's it.
So that's it. Thank you. So now I'm passing the puck to André.
Oh, thank you, Javert, for having me. Thanks, Lucia, and thanks, Claude, for your excellent inputs. Very interesting. And thanks, everyone, for your attendance. I'll take the next 15 or 20 minutes to talk about the data security in research environment. Next slide, please. Over the past 2 or 3 years, universities and research institutes have become the #1 target among public sectors. And it is, and they were like the target for cyber attacks. So we can name like ransomwares, phishing, social engineering, cyber espionage, etc. Well, this is not surprising since the research data, especially in different fields, research fields like genomics, climate science, agri-food innovation, etc. They carry enormous commercial, scientific, and also geopolitical values. So that's why we can see more and more cyber attacks or cyber risks. According to IBM, in 2025, the average cost of a research data breach reached approximately $4.5 million, which is huge. So now it's continuing to really to evolve, and then it's becoming more and more costly. So beyond the financial impact that we've seen, the consequences on the research projects can be really very harmful, very severe. I have some examples here. So you can have the loss of sensitive genomic sequences. Examples like the appearance of or deletion of pathogenic DNA, RNA. So you're more experienced on that than me. And this information, we can see it during the processes like genetic engineering, the NGS, the viral passaging, all these sequences analysis. They are really the target for different kind of attacks. And then we have the manipulation of climate models or agronomic predictions. Examples like distortion, unethical adjustment. We can also have the selective use of scientific simulations. So we're doing this to produce desired outcomes rather than objective or evidence-based results. So we're trying really to falsify, to change these models so they become really corrupt. And we have also breaches that involve indigenous or community-related data that we've seen with my colleague, Claude. And as an example, we can see the unauthorized access, the theft of the data, the misuse of sensitive personal, health, and cultural information. All these are become really a different problematic. And we have also something related to the risk for fundings or the ethical compliance. I will give an example as well here. We have the data misuse, the environmental damages. We have also the geopolitical issues. Next slide, please. When we talk about threats in research, we're not referring here to traditional hacking. So we're talking about more advanced or more sophisticated models. And here the landscape has expanded dramatically with something that my colleague has mentioned, the introduction of AI-driven attacks. I have mentioned here 4 or 5 of them, but there's more on this. I won't go into all the details, but we have also 4 major models here. You have the inversion and extraction model. It's a privacy breach where the attackers can use the machine learning models. And here he can try to reconstruct the sensitive training data. We have also the data poisoning. The attackers here, he inserting corrupted, he's trying to manipulate the data and he's trying to bias the data. For example, he can add some new samples, he can delete some of them, he can modify also the existing data in order to achieve some malicious goals. We have also the phishing. We know all what is the phishing, but now the phishing is closely related to the AI. So we are using the AI to create personalized phishing messages. And here it's becoming more and more hard really to detect them. And the 4th model is the synthetic identity attacks. It's a financial crime where the fraudsters can combine the real and fabricated personal information. So he's trying like to create some of fictitious identity, okay? And once this fictitious identity is created, he can start to gain unauthorized access and he can infer sensitive information in order to commit fraud. And this is really serious. On the technical side, what we usually see within the universities and institutions, we have first the cloud misconfigurations that remain the #1 cause of breaches within the institution on the IT side. We have also the weak API, which is the application programming interface. And here the security is a major issue because these kind of technical vulnerabilities or weakness, okay, are usually found in distributed or collaborative research platform. And of course, this is also a major issue that we really see almost every day at university level or elsewhere, the compromission of the student accounts or the collaborators in the research projects. And this continues to become to be a common entry point. Next slide, please. Well, several major trends now at this moment or over the time, they're shaping how we secure research data. So first we have the ZTA, which is Zero Trust Architectures. What does that mean? It's a security framework, of course, which is based on the principle that says never trust, always verify. So we can't take this for granted. We have always to verify what is going on. So Gartner, okay, mentioned recently that 80%, this is in 2025, which is recent still, 80% of the organization are moving toward the ZTA or any other framework. So the other framework, we can talk here about the NIST or the ISO or any other like security framework. So which means now we no longer assume that internal networks or environments are safe by default. Second, we have the multi-cloud, and more we have different kind of clouds. We have local cloud, we have private cloud, public cloud, and hybrid cloud. So I'm not going into details here, but as the statistics say, 70% of collaborations now, they span multiple platforms. And this, of course, may increase the flexibility of the teams, research teams, but at the same time introduce more complexity. And third element, third point here, we're talking about the PET, the PET, the privacy enhancing technologies. I mentioned here 3 of them. Okay, I will expand on this in the next slide. And these technologies, the PET, they allow researchers to analyze data without exposing it, so in a secure and responsible way. And finally, we have the data sovereignty. This is a major issue and is a big debate now on the right, especially within the political or economic turmoil with our neighbors, the Americans. Because it comes when we talk about the Cloud Act and these jurisdictions and the data, if we have an incident somewhere, and we're dealing with the American or European supplier, and we have a breach or an incident. So here we need to understand that it's the jurisdiction of the company that prevails. So if we deal with, let's say, Google Cloud or Microsoft, and we have an incident on the cloud, American can have the jurisdiction to go and do their investigation. So we don't have here a lot of maneuver, okay, but this is how it works. And finally, we see more and more the rise of AI in science. And this, of course, then affect or introduce new integrity risk. And this is what my colleague has explained before. We need to be able really to ensure this integrity, okay, for the data, of course, plus the availability and the confidentiality. Next slide, please. Well, now let's talk about more in details about the PET, the four or 5 models. I won't go into details just because we don't have enough time, we still have maybe 15 minutes. So as you can see, these models, the 4 of them, they use whether the machine learnings or the AI to protect also the data, the deposit, repositories, and the research collaborations. So, for example, for the differential privacy, this is a technique that can add some noise, some variation to the data of the queries, okay? So the individual or the people that work on this project cannot be identified. We have also the homomorphic encryption, and this is a form of encryption that allows computations or analysis to be performed directly on the encrypted data. So imagine we can do some computations on the encrypted data without ever decrypting it. We have also the SMPC, and it's a crypto also method that can enable the research collaborative genomic analysis while we can keep individual data. So we have different entities working on the same data, but separately. So every individual has its data privately. And this is some kind of mathematical techniques to ensure some confidentiality, integrity, and authentication. We have also two kinds that are very similar, the federated learning and the secure enclaves. Okay, and these kind of techniques that uses multiple entities. We have servers and devices, okay, and we create a kind of isolated or protection region within the computers in a very decentralized way, okay, to protect the data. So whether you use a computer CPU or memory to protect the sensitive data, and these two forms are done for that. Next slide, please. Well, if we want to go into the operationalize security, let's say, we need to embed it across the entire research cycle. So as you can see here, we have different phases, but not a single step. So first we have to plan. Start with the data management plan, the DMP, that my colleague have explained really brilliantly. We have the ethical approvals, and we have the clear access rules. Second, we have to use secure capture methods, software or platform, and encrypted devices. For the storage, we have to put some priority on the institutional platforms. So instead of using, let's say, Microsoft or something that is institutional, we don't have to go into Google Cloud or Dropbox or any other external devices. We have also to ensure our proper backups. This has been said before. We have to do some analysis and processing in a secure environments, whether we use a HPC for the computing, for high performance computing. We have the clusters as well. We have some controlled workspaces or any other approved cloud platforms. So we have different choices here, but we have to make sure that we have two kinds of models here. We have the on-premise, which is local, and we have external. So whether we use this or that, we have to make sure we're navigating in a secure environment for local storage. And then also we have to share our data securely, okay, and especially when we talk about the sensitive data sets. For the preservation, we need to use secure repositories with governance and retention policy. This is important because many of the institutions or the universities, they don't even have a retention policy, depending on the kind of projects, whether in the health sector or any other field. We have also the decommissioning, and here we need to ensure as well the security and confidentiality of the deletion or archival of the data. Next slide, please. To close, here are some really practical do's and don'ts. I try to divide them into two different categories. And we have really to make sure how to really navigate between these two sections, okay, in our day-to-day activities. So what we can do, okay, which is recommended, so we need to use institution-approved platforms to ensure security and compliance, whether Université Laval or Guelph or SFU or any other institution. We need to store our data in an encrypted institutional OneDrive or SharePoint or secure servers. And then after, we need to enable strong MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. In some cases, we call it also two factors on all our accounts. We have to document data transfer, whether it's a DMP or DTA. The DTA is data transfer agreement. It's important to have one when we have like a collaboration agreement. And we need to take immediate notification, okay, which is required for urgent situations, which means we have to report incidents within 24 hours. And this is a part of incident response plan in every institution. What we shouldn't do, okay, what we have to avoid to do is to use Gmail or Dropbox or WeTransfer, etc., when it goes to sensitive data. And we shouldn't store research data on personal devices. This is preferably, okay, especially when we talk about the storage and the backups. So here we talk about USB keys, external unprotected drives, etc. Never share the passwords. This is traditional. So this is important, not to share our password with our network. And of course, we need to use strong alphanumeric passwords, 16 digits or more. This is what's recommended. And finally, we need to avoid uploading research data into AI tools. This is really important. Whether we use Copilot or any other LLM or models, we have to avoid, okay, downloading or attaching some confidential or sensitive data. These small habits are very significant, and they're now applicable to any institution. And this can really reduce risk and strengthen the entire research ecosystem. So here we go. I finish now, and I would thank you. And should you have any questions, we are open to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, either unmute yourself or post in the group chat, and we'd be happy to answer them. In the meantime, oh, sorry, Charlie, go ahead.
Oh yeah, the homomorphic encryption thing. I've seen it around for a while. I'm wondering if hasn't been applied yet. It's interesting. Just don't know if it's been in use yet or what supports it.
I think that question was directed to Andre.
Yes.
It's me
Yeah,
or
sorry.
Lucia?
I'm sorry.
I heard Lucia somewhere in the.
Oh
no?
yeah, no. No, just that the homomorphic encryption is really interesting.
Okay.
And I was just wondering if there are platforms now that support it.
Very good question, Carly. Honestly, okay, what we've seen, I'm talking about my institution, we don't have this yet.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think is many other places, but it's becoming really, really, evolving over the time. And if we can follow what is going on, okay, within the security, field, it's going to be really hard to get through, because we're still using really the simple or the traditional way of securing our platform or environments. But it doesn't mean that someone somewhere, okay, start to think about it, because most of the attackers now, they are using AI to protect the AI against the AI. So we're using the same tools, okay, both sides, to protect ourselves, to increase our productivity, but at the same time to to harm the institution or the users within the private or public sectors. The encryption still, it's applied in many places, many institutions, many environments, but it didn't reach really the high level, okay, just to to make it more safe or more secure against the AI-driven attacks. I hope my response is enough. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And thank you to all the speakers for the really insightful webinar today. Again, Andre, you mentioned about these different ways by which people are trying to attack for the data. I mean, attack and stuff like that. But I think that the DMP, the management plan, are we pacing at the right pace, like to address the speed at which the cyber attack or those things are coming up, or like how to address that into a DMP, or is it necessary to address in the DMP, or is it not necessary, or is it something that at the institutional level it has to be addressed?
Very good question. The answer is it depends. Okay, we have at university level, I'm also focusing on my institution. We have a different level of knowledge base. Some researchers, some teachers, some students, okay, they know what is a DMP. Okay, they can go and then maybe solicit our librarians to ask for them to help them really prepare and navigate into the DMP, just to make sure all the structure, all the information is here. Now, when it goes to security and AI usage and confidentiality and privacy, and this varies a lot. Some people that are very close to the reality, okay, on the ground, and some others, they don't know what is a DMP even. So we're here really to help them. We're making lots of the, sessions when we try to deal to really with them during their project, and tell them the more you put information about the project regarding the nature of data, the owner of the data, the security, privacy, AI, so the more it will be comfortable for the whole team really to navigate through. Now, if we talk about the models that I've mentioned here, maybe most of these models are not known within the institutional or academic network, but we need to mention this in the DMP. If we are sure that we will use this or that model, we need to mention this in our DMP. But the question is now, it's not mandatory. In most of the institution, having a DMP is not mandatory. And this is really a concern for us. So we need to know more about the project, and you need to put this in a written format, which is the DMP. Or the data transfer agreement as well. When there's a collaboration between different parties, sometimes we need to create a data transfer agreement. So we need, this way we know how the data is handled and how it's secured.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for joining. We're at 4 o'clock, so perfectly on the hour. Thank you again to all the guest speakers, and thank you for the insightful questions and answers. That concludes our meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jabir. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Bye.